What's going on, YouTube? Avalon Youth. Welcome, welcome. Hope y'all are doing well. Excited to be here. I actually can't see how many of y'all are in there right now, but I'm glad y'all are with us. If you see me look down a lot, it's just my notes. Don't worry about it. Got a little outline, so I keep on track. Hope y'all are doing well. Excited for tonight. What's up, Domingo? Pulling up the comments. Lydia. Glad to see y'all. Glad to see y'all. Or Nathan. Whoops. Before we get started, make sure you grab a Bible of some kind, paperback, digital back, hardback, whatever you got around. Grab that, get it ready. Gonna dive into the scripture. We're going to be in John 6, 1 through 15. One of my favorite passages in the Bible, the feeding of the 5,000. Cool. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm excited to be with y'all tonight. So again, we're going to be in John 6, 1 through 15. It's the feeding of the 5,000. And tonight is actually going to be kind of a, not really a message, but more of a training, if you will. You're actually going to be interacting with me as we go through this. Some of you might have done this with me already. I've done this, I think, once or twice with some people. But this is called Inductive Bible Study. And I learned this when I first came to college at UCF about 4 years ago. And it changed my life. It changed how I studied the Bible. It changed how I read the Bible. So yeah, and it's a great way to exercise your faith on your own and embrace your faith on your own. So inductive Bible study is a fancy word for a style of Bible study that forces you to slow down and do three things. You're going to observe the passage, interpret its meaning, and apply what you interpreted to your life. It's very simple. It's a three-stage process, super easy. This definition gives us this cool little acronym called OIA. So I'm going to be using that a lot. We'll be in OIA. We're doing OIA right now for observing, interpreting, applying. So I'd like to share this method with you because it's a way to learn the Bible, study the Bible better and in depth. And that's what I'm going to do with you tonight. And normally I would ask you questions in person, but obviously we can't because it's virtual. So I'm actually going to just do it for you. I'm going to ask questions and I'll kind of help you answer them myself with my own observations, interpretations, and applications. Cool? Thumbs up, just kidding. So yeah, tonight we're in John 6, 1 through 15. It's the story of Jesus feeding the 5,000. So let's jump in and I'm going to read it real quick, okay? It goes like this. Sometime after this, Jesus crossed the far shore of the Sea of Galilee, that is, the Sea of Tiberias, and a great crowd of people followed him because they saw the signs he had performed by healing the sick. Then Jesus went up on a mountain and sat down with his disciples. The Jewish Passover festival was near. When Jesus looked up and saw a great crowd coming towards him, he said to Philip, "Where shall we buy bread for these people to eat?" He asked this only to test him, for he already had in mind what he was going to do. Philip answered him, "It would take more than half a year's wages to buy enough bread for each one to have a bite." Another of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up and said, "Here is a boy with 5 small barley loaves and the 2 small fish, but how far will they go among so many?" Jesus said, "Have the people sit down." There was plenty of grass in that place, and they sat down. About 5,000 men were there. Jesus then took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed them to those who were seated, as much as they wanted. He did the same with the fish. And when they had all had enough to eat, he said to his disciples, "Gather the pieces that are left over. Let nothing be wasted." So they gathered them and filled 12 baskets with the pieces of the 5 barley loaves left over by those who had eaten. After the people saw the signs Jesus performed, they began to say, "Surely this is the prophet who is to come into the world." Jesus, knowing they had intended to come and make him king by force, withdrew again to a mountain by himself. That was John 6, 1 through 15. So what we're going to do now is actually break this whole thing apart. And we're going to start with what's called observation. So in the observation section, we only want to look at things that interest us in the passage. We don't want to explain what it means just yet. We'll save that for interpretation. So as we go along, feel free to write things down and point things out that you notice and just journal it, write it down, type it out, whatever you want. For example, in verse 9, we see that the only food they have to work with is 5 loaves of bread and 2 small fish. Interesting. We see numbers, we see food, we see what they're going to use to provide the food for the 5,000. So that's an observation of numbers in the passage, for example. Another option we could make is Philip's response to Jesus. In verse 7, Philip says, "It would take more than half a year's wages to buy enough bread for each one to have just a bite." A very interesting detail about the amount of people present in the scene. And in the end of the passage, we see yet another observation in verse 12. When they had all had enough to eat, they gathered the food and filled 12 baskets with the pieces left over. That's a lot of baskets. They started with 1 basket, ended up with 12. Again, more numbers. So if we take those observations and we then interpret what they mean, and we dissect those different observations into, why is this here? Why is this in the passage? What does it mean? What is Jesus trying to tell me? What is Jesus trying to tell the original readers of the passage? We have some observations, so let's try and figure out what they mean. We want to interpret our findings as investigators. That's the whole point of this style of Bible study, is to investigate the passage and look for little details. So let's interpret our first observation. Philip said it would take more than half a year's wages just to give people a bite to eat. My favorite part of OIA, Inductive Bible Study, is getting a little silly, okay? The Bible doesn't have to be all serious. There's a lot of humor in the Bible. There's a lot of funny stuff in the Bible. So I like to do some silly math. If, let's say, a bite to eat is a cracker, some bread, right? Let's say half a year's wages is $30,000. To give everyone in this scene a full meal, let's say a full meal is 30 bites, just for fun. 30,000 times 30 is $900,000. That's almost $1 million. That's a crazy amount of money, right? We see them start by Philip saying, "Jesus, we can't possibly hope to fill all of these people completely. Even if we tried, it would take half the year, 6 months, to give people just a cracker, just a piece of bread. It would take forever to possibly give all of these people a full meal to enjoy." That's our first interpretation. We understand the meaning of the significance of this number that Jesus has given these people. We see Jesus performs this miracle. It is by no means something small. This is a massive, massive, massive provision of food for the people that are sitting there. Jesus has just provided so much food. It would have taken probably a decade, if not more, to realistically get enough money to buy the food for these tons of people, right? The cost of this miracle alone, just the money it would take, is an insane amount. Our second observation was the fact that there are 12 baskets left over after the people have eaten. Think of a time when you've had a very large amount of food. you've eaten bread, maybe crackers, maybe muffins, some nachos before the main meal. The main meal comes, you're enjoying your tacos, your lasagna, your chili, whatever your favorite dish is. If you're lucky, you have room for dessert. At this point, dessert, maybe coffee afterward if you're really crazy. You're so full, you get that like food belly where you kind of get that food baby where you just have so much food inside of you, you gain literally like 5 pounds, right? That's every single person in this scene. They're not just, yeah, that was a quick little snack. They are so stuffed, right? In verse 11, it says, they ate as much as they wanted. So if you wanted maybe 2 loaves, 3 fish, you got it. If you wanted 12 loaves and 20 fish, you got it. Women and children aren't included in the passage, but we can assume that there wasn't just men. But for the sake of the number, we can know that not everybody ate the same amount, but everybody got their fill, right? So Jesus provides so much food that everybody is stupid stuffed, right? We can interpret this observation to understand that when Jesus provides for his people, he does so in abundance. Jesus didn't just meet their needs, he exceeded them greatly. He provided food for everyone to be fed and to have leftovers for later. He provided food for the people and gave so much so that he had food for leftover and didn't let it be wasted. He put it in baskets for them to take and use later. These are examples of interpreting our observations. We first noted that Philip couldn't believe that there's no way. He said, Jesus, there's no way. This would take way too long to try and provide food for these people. And then we see him say, even if we did, they would only get a bite to eat. They wouldn't get a full meal. Jesus, fully knowing what was going to happen, said, oh, silly Philip, just wait. And we see Jesus provide a full course meal for every single person present and give food for after. So we've done observation, we've done interpretation, but why is it important? How is it relatable to our lives? How can we apply this passage? We've observed the passage, we've interpreted what it means. We've understood that Jesus performs amazing miracles. This is by no means something small. Not that miracles should be measured, but healing the blind, healing the lame. He provides a massive monetary value miracle here, and nobody could have done it except Jesus. This miracle was so big. And we know from the book of Matthew, who gives his account of the same miracle, we know that Jesus performs this miracle out of his compassion for the people. It says that Jesus saw the people following him and had compassion on them. So in this last section, let's apply what we've learned from our observations and interpretations. Who do you see yourself as in the passage? I'd like to suggest to you that there's 2 kinds of people in the passage. You could probably make more. You could probably make less. It doesn't really matter. But for now, we'll just focus on 2 kinds of people. Are you like the crowd? Maybe you're hungry. Maybe you're hurting. Maybe you need Jesus to heal you and feed you. Maybe you just simply want to be with Jesus. You want to enjoy his presence. You want to enjoy what he can provide. Maybe you're like Philip. Maybe you're doubtful that Jesus can provide such a big miracle. A lot of us can probably relate to Philip. Think of a fine that you have to pay. Think of some massive payment that you owe, and you only have $30,000. And yet it's $1 million that you have to provide. There's no way. It would take years and years to save the money, make the money, provide the money for that. And yet Jesus does it. So whatever the case is, we learn from this passage that Jesus not only provides for us, but he does so in abundance. He loves his children, and there is nothing he can't do. This application for this passage is the perfect, complete provision of Jesus. Whatever we need, he will provide. I just walked you through 3 stages of an inductive Bible study. Incredibly short. I could make this much longer if I wanted to. But this has been observation, interpretation, and application. We observed the passage and things we noted. We interpreted what we think they mean and how they're relevant to the passage. And then we applied them. And we said, what does this say about us? What does this say about Jesus? And what does this mean for me? Right? We learned that sometimes people are doubtful. People like Philip. They say, there's no way, Lord. There's only enough for people to have a bite. We learned that humanity, we learned about us, that we're not able to provide something like that. We're not able to do what Jesus can. We learned about Jesus that he is a great, great Father, and he provides for us not just what we need, but what we need in abundance. I hope this has helped you study the Bible better. You can do this in a group setting. You can do this on your own. All you have to do is observe, interpret, and apply it. This has been Inductive Bible Study, and I hope it's helped. Love y'all. See y'all on the flippy flip. Thanks for coming. Peace out.